Hello and welcome to Trek Untold, the Star Trek podcast that goes beyond the stars. I'm your host, Matthew Kaplowitz. Recently, I attended New York Comic Con, and I say recently, but I'm actually talking about it right now in the present tense, because I literally just got home from day 3 of New York Comic Con, and I got a ton of coverage to share with you guys, and that continues in this week's episode. On a very recent episode of this podcast, I posted my roundtable discussion with Mike McMahon. He's the showrunner for Star Trek Lower Decks, and he was there as part of a Star Trek press event that I was lucky enough to attend. But Mike was one of 5 different guests who was at this very special event. And those other 4 people that I spoke to are going to be part of this week's episode, and this time around, we're talking Section 31. This is the first Star Trek movie in many, many years, and it's going to be coming to Paramount Plus in early 2025. And I think the actual date is towards the end of January, so it's coming very, very soon. It's totally sneaking up on us, just like you would expect Section 31 to do. And I was fortunate enough to be invited by Paramount to attend a special press event where I got to speak with the director of this film as well as 3 of the cast members. So this episode isn't just going to be one guest like it normally is on Trek Untold. This is going to be 4 different folks that we're going to be chatting with today. And I say we, not just because you and I who are listening or watching this podcast, but we because these were roundtable discussions. More on that in a second, but let's run down this guest list here because, man, we got some fun ones here for this week. And what I'm holding in my hand for those who are watching the video version right now, this was essentially the crib sheet that they give you, or the cheat sheet, if you will, so that you know how to identify every single person you're going to be talking to at these press events. And yeah, this gives you an idea of who we're chatting with today. So kicking off things, we're going to be speaking with Omari Hardwick, who plays Alok, and Rob Kazinsky, who plays Zeph. And keep in mind, we don't know a ton yet about who these characters are, what they do, and this interview starts to shed a little bit of light on what they're doing. And then joining me in round 2, we have Kacey Rohl, who will be playing Rachel Garrett. And if that name sounds familiar to you, it should, because that's the same Rachel Garrett we saw in yesterday's Enterprise from Star Trek The Next Generation. And Kacey was joined by Olatunde Osunsanmi, who is the director and executive producer of the Section 31 film. Now, like I said a few moments ago, we is not just meaning you and I, we, because this was a press roundtable event. And if you're unfamiliar with that, what that means is, as opposed to how this podcast is typically a one-on-one interview with just me and a singular guest, these press events were roundtables, meaning that the guests that were just mentioned came in groups of 2, and they were being moved from table to table with different media outlets that were all joined together. So at my table, I had about 6 other people there with me as well. So you're not just going to be hearing my voice ask questions, you're going to be hearing several other folks from different outlets asking questions, including Sue from Women at Warp, we had folks from Engadget, we had folks from the Pop Insider, and a few other places as well. And I don't think I shouted them out in the Lower Decks episode, but I do want to say thanks once again to all those wonderful folks who were kind enough to let me stick a microphone around the table and get all their questions recorded on camera as well. And they're all just really cool people to hang out with, and I kind of missed them already. So hey, if you were a part of that press roundtable, send me a message, say hi to me sometime again. And the cool thing about it too is we all came with similar goals. A lot of us had the similar kind of questions we were planning on asking, but we also asked some really, really cool deep ones that were, I think, a little unexpected at times, and we're able to get some information that we otherwise wouldn't have found. Because as the saying goes, great minds think alike, and when it comes to Star Trek fans, there's a whole lot of great minds out there who are lucky enough to be covering this for press as well. I could go on and on endlessly about my time at New York Comic Con, hanging out with those folks, hanging out at other press events, and all the other different things that I did at the show. Really, that's going to be an episode, I think, for another day. But for now, I think it's time for us to go now deep undercover, or perhaps exposing that cover and going in even deeper with the cast and crew from Section 31. But before we get started with this week's episode, I want to ask you guys to please follow me on social media. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, you can follow this podcast at Trek Untold across all of those different places. Please make sure to subscribe to the show if you're listening to it on any audio platform, and we're on pretty much almost all of them out there. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, hey, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for all of our updates. And big shout out to my supporters over on Patreon. They help keep this starship going at warp speed. So as always, big gratitude to all my fine friends over on Patreon. And if you're in a position to financially support this podcast, please consider doing so by visiting patreon.com/trekuntold. We've got a list of different benefits you can get there as being a special member as part of this community, and you'll play a part in helping keep this show continuing to go at optimum power. You can check out links to all these things I just mentioned, as well as a few other things I didn't, in the show notes below. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and beam in this week's guest. Computer, access interview file.
All right, who's starting?
So, as little spoilers as you can tell, what can you tell us about who your characters are, what they're doing, what their motivation is?
Motivation. Motivation for my group that I have manned, the motivation is to police all galaxies, including Earth, and to police it in a way where sometimes rogue antics have to be imparted. There's an experiential wisdom to Alak, the character I play, that extends probably 200 plus years. And the viewers will learn that he is 300 plus years old. So I've been around for a while. They can tell I'm 300 years old. So,
Okay, cool.
yeah, he's really in control of this motley crew of characters. One of which is played by this fine gentleman to my left, who's become. Don't you make her a gentleman? It's a beautiful woman. Don't you do that? Oh, okay, yeah, him. Yeah, he looked at you. He looked back, by the way. And so, yeah, Rob plays a character he can talk to you guys more about, named Zeph, an incredible character, and I play Alak. And Alak is in charge of this motley crew. And we don't necessarily have a bone to pick with Michelle Yeoh's character, but we're knocking on her door. Let's just say that.
And I play Zeph, and I'm just there for the shits and giggles, the fun of it all. This is O Captain, my captain, right here. We're Beavis and Butthead. But yeah, I will do anything for him. Anywhere he tells me to go, I'll walk through fire for him. I'm his enforcer, his soldier, and I literally have no thoughts in my little head other than whatever he tells me to do, and also where's a sandwich. That sums up my character pretty perfect.
Yes, as I finish the sandwich.
I have a question. So you've both worked on, I'm trying to get close to you too. You've both worked on some very epic, projects in the past in varying genres. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, this is your first kind of Star Trek introduction. What was it like getting immersed in this world, like really, and embracing these characters?
He's got the better, so I'll go first because he's got the better. Thank you, guys. He has got the better story, to your great question. And you'll learn why Rob has a better story. So it was funny. Yesterday I got to the hotel, and on TNT, which was my first TV network, I was on Saved. And my first Vancouver or Canadian job was Saved, which shot in Vancouver. Get to the hotel, on is Return of the Jedi. No, Empire Strikes Back. Watch.
I see where he's going.
And I'm looking at it, and all I could think is I knew every single beat that was about to take place. And so it was a very interesting thing to come to the hotel room, knowing that I'm in town where, to your point, one of the epic jobs that I was humbled to be able to have is that of Power, shot in New York, as you know. And I get in the hotel room and learn within some hours that Rob had not really necessarily done New York and known it the way I know it. But I knew Star Wars, while knowing Star Trek, I knew Star Wars like the back of my hand. What was it like for me to join Star Trek? It was such an incredible reality, and I guess analogous to the point I'm making, that while sitting with my dear brother last night, and he goes, Omari, I don't know New York like that. And in my mind, I'm like, it's similar to when I came to the Star Trek family. I didn't know Star Trek like that. I knew Roddenberry. I knew Desi. I knew that it connected itself to Lucy and Desi. I knew that it was the first interracial kiss, right? It was the home of the first interracial kiss. I knew all of these incredible actors who were a part of it all, but I didn't know it. And so because our characters are so close, I probably got the greatest of cliff notage of all time, because Rob came in knowing what my character needed to be. And in many ways, Alak was aided in being constructed by this gentleman because he knew so much about Star Trek. So that's what it was like for me. It was like really grabbing onto his coattail and going, just help me out with this. Because I knew Star Wars, but now I know Star Trek. And it's really humbling to be able to say.
I mean, yeah, that sums it up. Star Trek's my thing. I was raised on the original series movies. Not the original series. I was raised on the original series movies. I was obsessed with them. I loved them. And then TNG. TNG has taught me more about morality, kindness, how to walk the right things in life. I mean, there's such there's an episode of TNG, I can never remember what it's called, and I should just commit it to memory one day, but it's where Riker meets Thomas for the first time, who's been left at the space station. And it's the finest example of what Star Trek's about for me, because they present Thomas's position, Will's position, Deanna's position, everyone's position. Everyone's position is, and at no point are you told what is the correct side to be on. What is the correct answer? What is morally correct in this incredibly grey situation? And the episode finishes with nobody being in the right, nobody being in the wrong. When did we lose the ability to do that? I know when. It was about 2016. But but that way to approach morality, all of that kind of stuff, that informed the person I am for my entire life. And when I got the chance to be part of this, this is my dream job. Yeah. I'll do it for free for the rest of my life.
Rob and I knew each other's work. So when I met Rob in the flesh, right, not in the suit, when I met him, we were in the administrative office on set in Toronto, and Rob was already pitching to me us coming back.
Yeah. I pitched out
and how 16. It's going to look and how it's going to go. And, it was amazing. And I said, this will be a hell of a ride and a heaven of a ride. So it's been really good. Not just in terms of coming to Star Trek, but coming to the castmates whom were brought to Star Trek. That's great for me.
Very excited about this bromance.
It's definitely a bromance, for sure.
Coming in as a lifelong fan, and Star Trek being a show about messages, is there a message that we can know about in Section 31 that you would really like audiences to take away?
Yes.
What is?
There is, actually, and it's the same message that I've said. It's a message that's existed in Star Trek all along. And I've already said it before, but I'm going to keep saying it and reiterating it, because I imagine, like me, a lot of Star Trek fans hate the idea of Section 31 existing. Because, like I said, we were presented with this idea of what the Federation is, that we've moved past this point. But Sisko, and again, can't remember the name of the episode, has my favorite line in Star Trek, which is, "It's easy to be a saint in paradise." And that's true of every society. All these guys can exist in this world, not because we've moved beyond it necessarily, but because the dirty work does have to be done. The idea of the Federation can only exist because of the sacrifices of people like the Maquis, like Section 31. There are these worlds. There is this existence. And the message is that I would like people to take away is that we can get to where we've got to get to, but it's not going to be easy. And that there are going to be times where you have to do uncomfortable things, have uncomfortable conversations, challenge your perspective, open up to dialogue. It's not going to be an easy journey to get there, but that's what Section 31 is about. Anyway, that's it.
And speaking of morally gray and Section 31 operating in a morally gray area, how does your character navigate this, and how did you portray that complexity?
I guess the inception of which, to your great question, the inception of which is the collective of the band that I put together. I remember asking Spike Lee on Movie 1, 2003, guys, I said, what directing? Where's the weight in directing? Spike said 90% is who you delegate and who you hire, who do you delegate to and who you hire. And it always stuck with me. I don't know if it's that, if there's that much of a dissonance between Rob's point of it's easy to be a saint in paradise. If you create a collective bargaining of some pretty special individuals, you have bargaining power. I'd ask my kids every morning, I'd say, guys, what do people want most in life? And Nova, who's 11, Brave, who's 9, they go, leverage, Papa, leverage. I say, don't say it like you're tired of me saying it. You're going to forever hear that. Leverage is what people want in life. And so I think... I
was like, sweets.
Yeah. So I always thought, because it does. Sweets does afford you an opportunity to get, And so they were... For me, when I looked at a lock and trying to figure, and I don't think an actor, and I'm being politically correct, is stated as female and or male, or any other gender for that matter. I don't find that an actor's where he or she needs to be, or they need to be, when they know you shouldn't figure that character out till 10 years after that project is done. You're grown. The character's got to take you to places. You can't control, So I loved that Tunde and Alex Kurtzman and Craig Sweeney and Star Trek, the franchise, Even if fans aren't aware that they were part of it. They threw me a lob, and the lob was, I'll give you leverage, and I'll give you that which you're allowed to go to Michelle's character and say, these are the things we're going to do. There is a scene where she's got to sit and look at all of the people that I've put together, and she's got to decide her collective bargaining and or whether there's leverage enough for her still by joining forces. And so I think your force is oftentimes, they say, meet a person's friends, you know the person. Look at somebody's bedroom, you know the person. But it is. Guilty by association is something else. And guilty sometimes is sexy versus innocent by association. So if a lock is guilty by association, it's that I've collectively put together quite the group. And that's my bargaining power. I can just kind of stay back and go, they said do it. That's a really good question.
And I'll add to it, which is it's exactly what you're saying. This show didn't come together until O got cast. And you have to, when you're casting that character's going to inform the same way that Picard informed, the same way that Kirk informed, the same way they all have informed what the tone of that show is. We didn't really know what the show was until O got cast. And when you cast, whether you're playing a character or not, you bring your sense of self to it. And when you cast someone of great morality, great clarity, great intellect into a role, you're going to sit there and suddenly be like, okay, now I know what this show is. And for my character specifically, who is literally your left hand, my morality is whatever you tell it to be. Give me good technology and a sandwich, and I'll do what you say. So for me, it was even doubly important who they cast to play this character. And because they cast O, my character became an extension of all the good things that this man is.
Do you understand his point? So a lot of actors don't. I don't want to get in trouble with my acting troupe. The gazillion actors out there. I love you all. There is never a character that is that far from something within the person who has been cast to play that character. So when you give me, as in Tunde and Alex Kurtzman, when you give me actors who are aware of that, he's aware. Rob comes to the world of going, yeah, but I got to figure it out. Our moms and fathers have often said, Jack Nicholson's always Jack. That's the brilliance. That's the genius. That's the genius. He can't be the same in this movie as he is perhaps in that movie, but if you always sense the through line being Jack is Jack, that's a beautiful thing. So it was an amazing thing to get actors who were not confused. I kept saying to many of them, you already have it. You already have it. There's no way Alex Kurtzman and Tunde hire him to play Zeph if he's not kind of that which Zeph is. But he equally knows that Omari doesn't mind him saying, oh, that's not what Star Trek is. Because I'm also someone in my Jackness who knows Star Trek better than you do. Got it. So now he's directing me. So as long as people aren't fighting the help that is brought called fellow teammate, and there's so many people that fight that. There's so many people. What does it mean? Is it I'm not where I need to be? No. You're exactly where you need to be.
It was the most ego-free cast.
It was like, that's what I'm getting at. Please leave egos at the door for any young actors who are listening to this interview with Rob Kazinsky and I. And we're saying, just bring yourself. Be open. Open is so huge. That's what happened to all the countries. They became closed. Everybody's closed, which is crazy. In 2024?
Yeah, still.
Dr. King, the Mahatma Gandhi, and everybody else, the Palestinian female prime minister that I never forget, they murdered and gunned down the middle street. Like, what happened? Everybody's like, ah. So as long as openness remains, to Rob's great point, man, we can go. Star Trek has always been about that. Stay within parameters. Discipline is sexy. But, go that way. The North Star, right? The North Star is really growth. And I've enjoyed coming to not only a programming, a formatting, a franchise that's about that, but the cast was like, let's just rock. And that's a very, very refreshing thing, particularly coming off of COVID. And then the strike was COVID too.
Yeah. All right, we need to wrap up.
Real quick, do you guys feel like there's room for you guys to come back, or room for Section 31-2 or anything like that? Without being spoilers. Nope. Okay.
I'll tell you this. If they do it, I'll do it. That's what he was pitching. That's what he was pitching. He has great ideas on how that can happen. That's my point.
And yes, that was me trying to sneak in one final question. And, well, at least I got a little bit of something there. Now, following that, we were sat down with Kacey Rohl and Olatunde Osunsanmi to continue the discussion and diving a little bit deeper with another performer as well as the director behind the Section 31 feature film. Let's go ahead and beam in those guests right now. So, Olatunde, if there was two classic movies you can compare Section 31 to, what would you say they were?
Oh, gosh.
No pressure.
Two classic movies. I would say, and people who know me will laugh when I give this answer, Crimson Tide. And let's see, another classic movie.
It's a classic.
Yes, what year is the cutoff for classic?
I'll let you have any year you want. How about that? You get the whole range, all the years.
Iconic.
Iconic
films.
Let's say Catch Me If You Can. You'll now watch the movie and be like, huh? Good question, though.
On that point, how did you approach balancing action and espionage elements with the character-driven format or character-driven drama in Section 31?
Balancing the action with the fun and the joy with drama was a lot of fun because I had a wonderful script. And I get to follow the script, and I get to interpret it. I got a lot of help. I get to sit down with the cast and go over it over several days. And really work through. This is where we'll be here for this moment. This is where we'll be here for that moment. Get to sit down with my DP, Glenn Keenan, who shot the movie and was just did a gorgeous job doing it. And you just break it down beat by beat, moment by moment, in 1 second increments. And before you know it, you've got a 500-page document that's besides the script that is essentially the roadmap of where I want to be before I even start shooting. And I have a large appetite. I love jokes. I love action. I love drama. I love tension. I love visual effects. I love set pieces. I want it all. And so it's fun being able to gear shift, and you have to do it deftly in order for it to not feel like too much for the audience. And then there's the Star Trek of it all. At the end of the day, it's still got to be Star Trek, and that's probably the hardest part, right? But it's also the most important part.
So I wanted to ask, you usually do Star Trek episodes. What did you find to be the biggest difference in doing an episode versus a 2-hour movie?
Well, excellent question. I get to do a complete story. The thing with the episodes is you'd never feel quite fulfilled by the end of it because it doesn't end unless you get to do the finale of the whole season, which I got to do for Discovery. But with the movie, it's one complete story. I get to max it out. I get to put everything that I want to put, that I can put in those 2 hours. I'm running a sprint in a movie instead of a marathon. The TV shows are marathons, so you can only push the crew so far because you got to work with them for a year, and you got to pace them out. But with the movie, it's just everything all the time, all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. But, yeah. It sounds familiar.
Yeah. I've heard that before.
That would be the difference for me.
Kacey, you're playing a character that is pretty well known in the Star Trek universe. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on how much you knew about Rachel Garrett before you took the role here and just what it's been like taking that mantle.
What mantle? I did not know about Rachel prior to the audition process. Even when I started auditioning, I didn't know that's who I was auditioning for. I'll move closer to your mic. No problem. So I got to learn on our final callback who the heck I was, and
we kept it a secret.
You did.
We didn't tell.
There was a fake name. There was a whole thing. There was dummy sides. It was very. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so I didn't know. I knew I was Starfleet. but other than that, I didn't know much. So I got to, just come into it totally fresh. Watch the episode that Trisha O'Neill just knocks out of the park again and again and again and again and again and again and again. I just love what she did with it, and so many goodies that I could digest, and and then eventually not wanting it to be sort of me puppeting myself to be Trisha, trying to bring my own humanity to it and my own take. Felt like the right thing to do. Yeah.
So, in terms of merchandise, obviously for Star Wars fans, that's another way to enter the universe with ship models and uniforms and pins and captain's logs, right? We have all that stuff. What's something that you could see or want to see become a product that fans could use and display or wear or have an action figure of that you'd like to see enter our universe?
Oh, you want me to go first?
Well, I just.
Okay. Well,
we can go at the same time.
Well, my personal dream as a fan, before I started working within the franchise, would be to have Star Trek Land. Like, I don't understand why I can't have, like, so I just went to London and did the whole Harry Potter experience. Have you guys done the Harry Potter? It's like pretty amazing. And Harry Potter has been around for like 10 years or something, you know? And Star Trek's been around for 58 years or something? Like what the heck? You know, like I should be able to go somewhere and walk on a lot and walk onto the Starship Enterprise and be able to go on a mission with whoever's in line with me and then get off and be in another world. You know, Star Tours is another example. You know, like give me a Star Trek land, whether it's at Universal or whether it's at Disneyland or whether it's at Paramount Studios in Los Angeles. Like, please, God, give that to me. That's what I would like. Yeah.
Oh, my turn. I can't really get too specific with it, but there is a piece of tech in our film that opens like a little lotus flower.
Yes.
And maybe projects some things. And I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. And yes, that's what I want.
Yeah.
Yes, what comes out of it too is also cool, and I would like that.
Cool.
That's all I can say without being fired. Thank you.
It's too late.
Well, it's been fun, guys. I'm going to go.
No, I mean, it's too late to
fire me.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Love that.
The Star Trek franchise, as fans know, has always been about the messages that the show is trying to get through. What can you tell us about the message of Section 31?
Yeah, well, the message that I usually get when I watch a Star Trek show is be good and to aspire to something better than what we've got now. And it's just Star Trek has all these positive messages that reinforce each other over and over again. And the challenge with 31 is, you know, our lead is Philippa Georgiou, played by Michelle Yeoh. Michelle Yeoh is an awesome individual. Her character has quite the journey from her childhood, which we get to see a little bit about in 31, to an emperor that did terrible things, to an individual having to reconcile with those terrible things throughout the course of Discovery, to a person who still has to take that further and bring her atonement home in 31. And I think you know, one of my favorite messages in themes that happens in 31 is everybody's capable of change for the better if they dedicate everything to making that happen within themselves. And that's a big message. A lot of us need to hear it.
And to sort of build off that, Kacey, as well, like obviously you mentioned Rachel is coming into this as a Starfleet officer and is dealing with a section of the Federation that is controversial in its very existence. What is it like, and I guess a question for you both, what is it sort of like you are creating in many ways a Star Trek story that sort of a lot of people will feel quite combatively against, like this is not what Star Trek is about, like what Section 31 does is very much sort of like the antithesis of the message. What was it like trying to sort of find that balance and like the tension with all these characters where they're dealing with like an organization that they have to work with, but also at the same time don't actually want to exist?
I can answer from my perspective. I think what was cool about Rachel for me is that she is a person who has been so held and encouraged by a system that really works for her and she fits really well inside of. And in her interactions with Section 31, comes to understand that there are many ways to be good, and that it's not always following the rules, and that it's good to question some things and look at things from outside the cloud of not the cloud, but just a way of life that she's been really locked into, to see things from other perspectives, and many different ways to be good. Do you want to follow up on that?
Oh, I would just say it's great you asked that question when Rachel Garrett is here, because she is the Starfleet component of Section 31. And I totally understand how fans can be, or there's, concern about taking a look at the darker side of Starfleet and of the Federation. And it also mirrors life. We have the CIA, we have other three-letter acronyms that we don't know about that do maybe terrible things so that we can have the way of life that we have. But I think it's important for fans to know before they watch the movie that at the end of the day, this is a Star Trek movie, and it still has to be fun, and it still has to be full of joy, and there are tremendously dramatic moments in it for sure. But everybody involved in making it wanted to honor what Star Trek is, not tear it down. We want to honor it, so we care.
I was kind of piggybacking on that same question. Is just also in the feel of this film, it feels very different than kind of like the traditional Star Trek, like, I guess for lack of a better term, vibes. How did you all approach that in directing and in acting, that different feel of the Star Trek film?
Yeah, I mean, I think the wonderful thing about what Alex Kurtzman has done with this modern day Star Trek is he's tried to have different flavors and different colors of the rainbow to appeal to different segments of the population, while all still trying to keep it all Star Trek. And so that was really important too. Wow, there's is that? Yeah. So this is another flavor, another color of the rainbow, but it's still Star Trek. And I think what's wonderful over the years, we've seen this amazing expansion of Star Trek, and you also see other franchises trying to do it, like Star Wars. Being a part of the Star Trek franchise, I would argue that maybe we're doing a better. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to get into that. But it is, to your heart of your question, it is a very difficult thing that takes a lot of thought. It's a team effort, and fortunately, we have a wonderful leader at the top doing it in Alex, who cares tremendously about getting it right. And so we all try to get it right.
So without spoilers, what can you tease about the movie or about your character, or is there anything surprising that audiences are going to experience?
I think she's looking at you. She really wants to. Good luck.
Well, full of surprises. Truly, I remember first reading the script and being like, what? So strap in for that. And then, in terms of Rachel, it's a very interesting journey to put a tightly wound Starfleet officer in that world. And so we do get to go on a little bit of a journey with her through that, of self-discovery, as we've been saying. So, that's what I got.
Well, the first person who dies. Yeah, and then it ends on. There's a lot of twists and turns. You're right about that. Like, we get desensitized to it because we watch it over and over again, and we read the scripts. But there are a lot of twists and turns. So hopefully, there's a lot of open mouth moments, like, that really throw everybody for a loop.
I hope the experience. Do you mind? Thank you. Sorry. I hope the experience of watching this movie is like when we got to shoot things where we had to do this in the chair a lot. That's what I hope the experience of this film is. Well, that's all I'll say.
If there were an action figure of Rachel Garrett, what accessories would she come with?
Well,
other than the Lotus thing.
Other than the Lotus thing, well, she'd have her phaser, and she'd have her fabulous leather jacket, her little festy, that's, I think the big accessory would probably be her side piece. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing cooler than holding a Star Trek phaser.
Can confirm.
So, is this a conclusion to Emperor Filippo's story, or is the door open for more storytelling with Section 31 beyond this?
Oh, well, the door is wide open for Section 31 storytelling as long as you and the audience love it. It's wide open because we introduced these unbelievable characters played by a truly phenomenal cast. Like, you've not seen, because Star Trek is obviously has a particular fabric. You've not seen cast perform it the way they've performed this. It's unique in and of to itself. It's a lot of fun. And did that answer your question? What was your question?
Basically, I'm pushing here to see if I can get ideas as far as like sequel series. Is it more? Will there potentially more?
I think you were asking whether or not Filippo dies at the end. Was the heart of your question.
Exactly. Yeah. And Darth Vader's her father, right?
I can neither confirm nor deny either of those two. But Darth Vader is not her father. But it does have a very, I think, an ending that would be satisfying, while at the same time allowing the series to continue, or I call it a series. Maybe there's a slip of a tongue there. That'll allow the movie franchise to continue. Yeah, it just comes down to, our audience loving it and you guys loving it, and we'll see what happens.
That's it for this week's episode of Trek Untold. Thank you for watching and listening. Please don't forget to follow this show on all different social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Trek Untold. And please make sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. And for the folks who are watching this over on YouTube, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel to make sure you get all of our latest updates and episodes. A massive thank you to all my supporters over on Patreon. And if you're in a position to financially support this podcast as well, please consider doing so by visiting patreon.com/trekuntold. If you've been enjoying these New York Comic Con coverage episodes, let me know. Send me an email over at trekuntold@gmail.com. And likewise, if you have any suggestions for guests or things you want to see done differently, or folks you want me to talk to, go ahead and send me an email there as well. Until next time, I'm Matthew Kaplowitz. This has been Trek Untold. Thanks for checking out this week's episode. And until next time, always remember, fortune favors the bold.
Trek Untold, the Star Trek podcast that goes beyond the stars, is powered by the Rageworks Podcast Network and affiliated with Nerd News Today.